And in our contract then, and I'm pretty sure in the contract now, although I'm not a part of it now, if there is a work stoppage, either a strike or a lockout, the umpires are paid up to 1/2 year's salary. In other words, baseball's from basically April, the regular season. I'm talking about April to October. So if they did not play April, May, or June, somewhere in there is a halfway point, and then they would stop getting paid. It's basically what would happen. So you would have had to have a very long work stoppage. The 90 days or 99 days or whatever it was, that doesn't count into this. It's actually for the contractual reasons that we're talking about. It's from the playing calendar. So so it would have to be a pretty long strike or lockout over half of a regular season for the umpires to basically lose money. They would then not be paid after that half.
Okay. So during that 94-95 strike then, what was the situation like for you during that time period? You lived through that. You were an umpire through that period. How stressful was that, going through that, knowing that the beef is between those two parties and you're kind of just an innocent bystander in a sense?
Well, it was good and bad. And here's why I say that. When they went on strike on August 12th, that was well after the halfway point. So we were going to get paid the rest of that season no matter what happened. And we were. So it was kind of a unscheduled vacation. I mean, I hadn't had August off in quite a while, not to mention September. And so that wasn't stressful at all, to be honest with you, because we weren't involved in it. Now, when it became stressful was that so happened to be also the last year of our current contract at the time. So on December 31st, 1994, we were not under contract. And of course, the players still weren't. So they're not going to negotiate with us until they get the players back on board. So starting January 1st, 1995, we were not getting paid. And that was stressful because I didn't get my first paycheck in 95 until the first week of May. So the first 4, months of the year, I was not being paid, and none of us were. And so I had to do some creative financing and that kind of thing to get through that. Once they settled with the players, then they negotiated with us. We finally got a settlement, like I said, right around the first week of May, and then we were back online. So part of that strike was actually nice. I had some time off. I was getting paid in 94, 95, not so much.
Okay. Hey Dale, this is AJ here. I just wanted to talk to you about some of you've been a big part of some pretty key moments in baseball history, especially like some of the World Series, some of the more memorable World Series in my mind, the 98 one, the 2001, and 2004. Maybe we can just start off with 98. Well, what do you remember about that? That was your first World Series, correct?
Yes, yeah, it was. Obviously as an umpire, a lot of different levels. First umpire school, you try to get out of that high enough to go to the advanced school, and you try to get out of that and getting a job in the lower minor leagues. Then you're trying to, go up to each level. And then when you're in AAA, you're trying to get to the big leagues. All those steps were made. Now, once you're in the big leagues, of course, you want to get, your first event, like the All-Star game. You want to get your first postseason. And then you want to get your first World Series. Those are all stepping stones as an umpire. So 98, when I got the call to I was assigned my first World Series, it was beyond a thrill. I mean, obviously it's something you work for. Back then they had, or we had in our contract, that all postseason assignments had to be put out on like September 10th. So, I knew weeks in advance that I was going to be working the World Series. It's different now. It's much closer to the event now and not so much time. But it was funny because I was in Toronto when I got the call that I was going to work the World Series. And I also worked the first round, the division series that year also, which is all the World Series umpires also work in the division round. But I got the call on I believe it was a Saturday. Well, it was a Saturday, but the next day was a getaway day. I was behind the plate. Boston was playing Toronto. I ended up ejecting both managers and a pitcher that day. So the next day, Monday, Marty Springstad, who was the head of the American League umpires, the one that assigns the World Series, and the one that told me the great news just a couple days previous, he called me and he said, "Scotty," I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You did hear me correctly, right? I told you got the World Series." He was joking like I was, PO'd and went out and ran a bunch of people the next day. But that was a big thrill, and it ended up that was one of those years where the Yankees were darn near unbeatable. They won 117 games or whatever it was, but they ended up sweeping the Padres in 4.
Yeah, for real. I watched those Yankee teams growing up with my dad, and I just lost my dad a couple months ago. So it's really cool to think about those times. Like, he was from New York, so Derek Jeter was coming up. He was just like larger than life, and Rivera, all those guys. That 98
right.
Yankees team, unbeatable, just unbelievable time, and yeah.
Yeah, that team was basically they showed up and they won. It seemed like
they were legit. For sure.
Yeah. And that one little side note on that, I had Game 3, which was behind the plate, which was the first game in San Diego, and it was the first of only 2 times that a umpire wore a red shirt in a World Series game. The American League had, for uniforms from 90 for 5 years, 95 to 99 seasons, they had a dark blue shirt or a red shirt, and which is on the cover of my book. Actually, is me wearing the red shirt. The National League never did that. They had the dark blue and they had black shirts. So anyway, I wore it on the plate in Game 3 in San Diego. And the only other person to wear it was the next year in the 99 World Series, when Darryl Cousins wore the red shirt. And Darryl and I were the only 2 guys that wore the red shirt consistently. We unless it was so cold I had some kind of a jacket on behind the plate, I always wore the red shirt.
Forgive my ignorance, Dale. What's the significance between the red shirt and the other shirt?
Just a different color.
Okay.
like right now they have black and blue.
Okay.
I think the reason they did the red in the American, they just want to be different. They wanted to be a little, back then, of course, we're all under the same umbrella now, and we're both American National League, and that started in the year 2000. But the American League, back in the 70s, they had the maroon jackets, where the National League never had that. They had the dark navy blue.
Okay.
So it was just kind of something to be a little bit different.
Now, how does the selection process go for who the umpire crew is going to be for those big events, such as like the All-Star Game or the World Series?
Well, you're constantly evaluated. You're evaluated for every game you work. You're evaluated for every pitch that you call. You're evaluated for every call you make on the bases. You're even evaluated on calls that you don't make on the bases. For example, if there was an obstruction that you missed, you're going to be dinged for not calling obstruction. Then in early September, usually early to mid-September, all the supervisors get together and go over all the data they have. They have all your, like I said, all your pitches that you called that year, percentages and plays, and they've been observing you either in person or on video the entire year, and then they make up crews. They have. As of now it's changing this year or is the new expanded to a playoff this year, I think, or maybe that start next year. Starts this year. Okay. So I'm not sure what the format or how this is going to work now with the umpires, but what we had before is you would have a 6-man crew for the wild card games. Usually 4 of those 6 would then work the league championship series, after the divisional series. Then you would have 6 umpires for the divisional series, and of course there's 4 of those, so 24 umpires. Out of that group of 24, you're going to get the 7 umpires that will work the World Series. Then you have the League Championship Series, which is 2 7-man crews. And like I said, usually 4 of the 6 of the 2 wild cards would be in there, and then they bring other guys in. And then you have the World Series that is taken out of the divisional. All that is just put together by the supervisors because of your evaluations for that year. And plus, you need to balance crews. You don't want to put, 4 crew chiefs and 2 real senior guys on a crew, because you need to incorporate younger guys to get some games under their belt in the playoff in postseason. If you always use your senior guys all the time, well, eventually they're going to retire, and you're going to have a bunch of guys that have no experience. So you have to move them in. So usually the World Series, you usually have 2 rookie. When I say rookie, the first World Series umpires, and then you have a couple crew chiefs, and you have a couple more senior middle guys and that kind of stuff to create a crew.
Yeah. Now, Dale, just to go back to the World Series stuff a little bit, because I'm super, super interested in that. I could have died after the 98 World Series, after umping that. That's super cool. But then you went on and did the 2001 World Series, which was incredibly significant, not just in baseball history, but in American history, because it was the Diamondbacks and the Yankees, and that was right after September 11th. Of course, the Yankees lost that World Series, but still, what was the feeling of that whole thing? I mean, that had to weigh heavy, right?
Well, the country and the city of New York, for sure, we were all still in shock of what had happened. In fact, my game behind the plate was Game 3, which was the first game at Yankee Stadium. It was the game that President George W. Bush was throwing out the first pitch. It was exactly 7 weeks to the day from 9/11. So just 7 weeks earlier, about 13 miles away, was one of the biggest, most horrifying disasters this country had ever went through, as well as obviously Washington, D.C. and in Pennsylvania. So the mood of the country was still in shock. I mean, all of this, this could happen. And baseball actually helped kind of calm, when they started baseball back up again after 9/11, just to try to get some normalcy back into people's lives and something to take their minds off of something for a little while. Absolutely. You're obviously a Yankee fan. For the most part, I've found you're either a Yankee fan or you're not. I mean, there's not a lot in between, right? And I think in 2001, I think even non-Yankee fans were Yankee fans just because of the situation. And ironically, they lose. And how do they lose? Because Mariano Rivera blows a save in the 9th inning, which I think is the only time he ever did it. Was that game. So, there's just a lot of irony and things going on. But that series was an emotional. It was just an unbelievable time. Right. It started later than normal because everything was pushed back. So we had the first November World Series games. My Game 3 play job was on October 30th, but we went into November. It was a series where the home team won every game. It was a series that the Diamondbacks blew, I think, 2 games in Yankee Stadium with dramatic home runs by Jeter and I'm not sure who else, but I mean, it was just an unbelievable series. And then the way that the Diamondbacks won it, scoring 2 in the bottom of the 9th, after the Yankees, I think, made 2 errors in that inning, or maybe 1, but just a lot of things that happened that you didn't normally see. Rivera, blowing a save, guys making errors that they don't normally do. So you just compounded that into a 7-game series. It was really to be on the field, and part of that, I'm proud that I was there. Sometimes I think, how the heck did I from Eugene, Oregon, get into Game 7 of a World Series? But I did. And in fact, the game-winning hit by Gonzalez, which was just a blooper over a drawn-in infield. I'm the second base umpire, so I'm in that highlight every single time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing. I wanted to ask you one more World Series question, if you don't mind me bugging you about it. But then moving on to the 2004 World Series, I could ask you probably a million questions about any one of these. So I'm trying
So
to.
how long is this show?
Right. I'm trying to control myself here. So, but the 2004 World Series, where that was the, breaking the curse of the Bambino for the Red Sox.
Right.
Holy smokes! Like that place must have been nuts. What was crazier, New York after September 11th or Boston?
Well, it was a different kind of crazy, but 2004, the Red Sox won it in St. Louis.
Right.
That again was a sweep. But let me tell you a little story about 2004. That was the year that the Red Sox were down 3-0 to the Yankees, to the dreaded, hated Yankees. That rivalry that's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
And then came back, first time ever that a team came back 0-3 and swept 4 games in a row and sent them to the World Series. So they won. They beat the Yankees and all that. I believe that Game 7 of that series was on Wednesday. Mike and I flew into Boston on Thursday, and the series started on Saturday. When we got to Boston, and I've got a lot of friends in Boston, it's a great city. I've always enjoyed going there. Fenway is quite a venue. But when we flew into Boston on that Thursday, it felt like everybody in that city was walking about a foot above the ground. I mean, everybody was so ecstatic from what had just happened the night before and the 4 games before to come back and win that series. It was like they'd already won the World Series. They beat the Yankees like that. And it was just, this whole city was just like in this euphoric glaze, It was really quite something. And then they went on, and I think, quite frankly, the only close game of the 4 in the series was, I believe, my play job, which was Game 2 in Fenway, Game 2 of the series, and Boston was on such a roll that, after they swept the Yankees after being down 0-3. They just took care of St. Louis like it was nothing almost. I mean, it was like an unstoppable force at that point. If it had finished in Boston, I'm sure that would have been quite a spectacle. It was anyway, but we weren't there. So that would have been quite something. But yeah, the 3 World Series I had 3 in 7 years, which is kind of insane. And to have, 98, the first one, a Yankee juggernaut, team, 2001, which is unbelievable. And then the Boston curse that was broken in 2004. It was, I'm very grateful for being able to be say I was on the field for those,
Yeah, that's a heck of a run there.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, you're the author of the book, The Umpire is Out, Calling the Game and Living My True Self. That is a story about your life in baseball, also your life coming out as a gay official. Can you give me what inspired you to write that book? Did you know, hey, I got a story here? Did somebody come to you and say, this is a story, this is momentous? What inspired you to go about writing this book?
Well, it's funny. There's been many umpires when they retired have written books, and they're funny, and there's some great stories, and some behind the scenes kind of stuff that we have a pretty good seat at most games, so there's a lot of things going on now. But I never planned to write a book. I was asked many times before I retired, hey, when you retire, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And it was mostly because of the stories I would tell and stuff, and people would laugh or whatever. But I just didn't want to do that. I'd read a lot of the books. I'd worked with a lot of the guys that wrote the books. They're entertaining. They're fun. But I had no desire to do that. But I do have to say, though, after I came out in 2014 and the response I had, such an overwhelming positive response I had from people around the world, that and people that told me that hearing my story and me coming out changed their life. Either they stuff like I'm not out of the closet yet, but I'm one step closer because of your courage and thank you for doing that. Or I had a father from Toronto say I congratulate you and thank you. I'm hoping that my two daughters are going to grow up in a society where this won't even be a story at some point, which was certainly my goal. Probably the best response I had, which was I write about it in the book, and it's really incredible, is I got a email from a senior in the LA area who umpired baseball. His goal was to be a major league umpire, and he was gay, and he wasn't out, but he was gay. And so he wrote me and he said, now I know I may not make it to the major leagues because I don't have the talent, but it's not because of who I am. That's pretty powerful, to have somebody to know that what I did made such a profound effect on someone's self-esteem and how, and his confidence. He asked me if when I come to LA, could we do lunch? I said, absolutely. So I had lunch with him right like a week before he was graduating in high school. And, had a great conversation and talking to him. Well, I came back to LA in August. It was about a couple weeks before he was off to college. And I said, by the way, last time I was here, you were about to graduate. How'd that go? And he goes, oh, it went great. He said, because of you, I came out to the whole school and my whole family that night. I was like, I stopped and go, well, how'd that go? I'm like, what did I cause there? But he said it was, the response was outstanding. I mean, just a great kid. His name's Sal. We still are in contact. But okay, so that happened. So now we fast forward. I retire. I have no intention to write a book. Rob Nyer, who wrote the book with me, he's been a longtime baseball writer, over 25 years. He happens to live in Portland, where I live, just by coincidence. But I had helped him with the book a few years earlier for some background information in a book he was writing. So he called me in 2018 and said, "Hey, listen, I'm having I'm gonna have let's have lunch. I've got this book that you helped me with. I'm going to sign a book." Okay, good. So we're having lunch, and he said, "By the way," he goes, "when are you going to write a book?" And I said, "Rob, I have no intention to write a book." He goes, "Well, if you wrote a book, I mean, I'd be the first one to read it." He goes, "You have got a story." And I said, "Well, Rob, umpires have written books." He goes, "Oh, yeah, I know, and you got great stories, but you have another story that nobody has, and that's compelling, and I really think it should be out there." Now, you might say, "Well, he's saying that because he wants to help you write a book," but that wasn't the case. Because later on, I said, that got me thinking, and that with the stories I just told you about the response I had, I thought, I really do have a story that no one has, and maybe I was. So I asked Rob. I said, "If I do this, would you write it with me?" He goes, "Absolutely." So that's how it got started. We shopped it around with some looking for agents and trying to get a publishing deal. And it took a while, but we finally got one at the University of Nebraska Press. We started writing in October of 2020. Sent the manuscript in May of 21. And went through all these edits. I mean, I'm learning a lot about publishing, so I had no idea about. But finally, got everything rolling. It was to come out May 1st of this year. The books kind of got done printing a little early. Anyone that pre-ordered, like on Amazon and other places, are getting them now. So the books are out there, and it's been quite a ride. It's been a lot of fun.
I do want to apologize. You mentioned that I had seen that it was May 1st, and typically when we have a guest on that has a book release, we like to have a copy in our hands. We also like to, read it over a little bit so we know what the hell we're talking about. And
right.
And then all of a sudden I started seeing posts on your Facebook of people getting them, and I'm like, uh-oh, did we just screw up here? I thought it was May 1st it wasn't supposed to come out to. But the pre-order, okay, they shipped early. That makes sense then.
Right. And we're gearing up a promotional tour. And we've been focusing everything for a May 1st launch, right? So, the promotional stuff is going to start in like mid-April and go through June. Then everything started kind of early, so we're kind of scrambling. But I am going to be out. It's only a couple have been confirmed, but it looks like I'm going to be at probably 8 MLB Pride Nights throughout the country.
Okay.
Making appearances and stuff, and then we're going to do book signings in different cities and that kind of stuff. So that'll all be posted on Facebook, and I've got a website that'll be going online here soon. All that stuff will be available for people to, if they want to do a signing or go to one of those games.
We'll have to post those links then when that link for the website and stuff becomes available.
Right.
So one of the things while reading through kind of like is it forward you'd call it? Yeah. Type of thing. One thing that kind of popped into my head was, you are leading basically a double life until you came out. But I don't know if the reader picks up right away. Maybe they do. I haven't read the book. Your husband's also living a double life, and the fact that he can't be seen with you at places, right? Am I wrong in that thinking? I mean, he's kind of stay hidden.
Yeah, Mike and I met after my first year in the big leagues, my first year in the American League, in October 1986. And, I did lead a double life, but I wasn't a closeted gay man. I mean, at home, I had, gay friend, I was out to friends and my family knew and that type of stuff. But my baseball life was one that I, hit. And it's a unique job from the standpoint, if you're trying to hide something like this. I lived in Portland. I lived in Eugene the first year and then in Portland the rest of the time. But I was never working in a city that I lived in. So, and it's not a job where like maybe an office job where you have a summer picnic with the family, all the families or something, or you have a Christmas party, and you bring in a wife or your husband or, whatever. I mean, none of that. We don't have that kind of, this type of job doesn't have that. So it was in a way kind of easier to lead that double life for the fact that, wasn't a unique type job, or it is a unique type job with the travel and that kind of stuff. The other thing was, it was kind of helpful. I have one cousin a couple years older than me that she's does hair, and she used to do cut my hair all the time, and she was always trying to set me up with some girlfriend of hers. Oh yeah, she's really cute. You'd really like her. So, and I said, listen, it's tough for me to get in a relationship because, in a month I'm going to be gone for the next 6 months. So it's just really, so I had this kind of built-in excuse that made sense, that I could, throw out there and throw everybody off the scent or whatever. But you're absolutely right. And I write about it in the book. Mike and I, early in my career, he would come out to visit. Let's say I had a series in Chicago or something, and we literally would take separate elevators or walk different ends of the lobby or something. Because if I ran into one of my partners, this friend of mine from Portland, Mike, and I was just trying to avoid any of that. Now I look back on it now, and I feel like an idiot. Frankly, I mean, I feel like, like I say, I felt like I was treating him and myself like second class citizens, for God's sake. But literally that did happen. I mean, we would get room service, and when the guy would come or gal would come, he would go in the bathroom. They would, bring it in. Thank you. Well, one time, first of all, we a lot of the hotels we stayed at, the whole staff when they were working in that city would stay at that same hotel. So we knew a lot of the people that worked at the hotel. So, I was fearful that, somebody would come in, they see one bed and two guys, and think, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. And so, this is the precautions I was taking so I wouldn't be outed. One time the room service came, boom, boom, boom. Thank you. He goes, I pour the wine and we're starting to eat. There's a knock. He said, the room service, I forgot to bring your rolls, your bread. So Mike gets up, goes to the bathroom, and the guy comes in. Now it's obvious that we've already started eating. It's obvious there's wine's been poured or whatever. And this guy, sets the bread down and kind of looks at me like, well, what's going on here? I mean, I can laugh at it now, but I really felt, I just didn't feel good about doing stuff like that. But you have to understand also, when I first started professional baseball in minor leagues, my first game in the Northwest League in June of 81 was literally 2 weeks after a strange new cancer was affecting young men in San Francisco and New York. Well, it was the AIDS epidemic, the beginning of it. So I paralleled the AIDS epidemic in the minor leagues and through my, and when I got to the big leagues. So I was not only fearful that if they found out I was gay, I would never get to the big leagues because they would never advance me and all that stuff. But I was even doubly fearful because just for the fact that if they found out I was gay, that means, well, you might have AIDS. And so there'd be guys that wouldn't want to even work with me. They wouldn't want to, in the minor leagues, you're rooming together in hotel rooms, you're driving, together, you're working games, you're constantly together. And, people were scared back in the early and mid 80s because they didn't know a lot about this disease. So there was a lot of things riding on it in my mind. And that's why I actively tried to hide who I was. Yeah.
Now, at what point? So you came out in 2014. What gave you the courage? Like, what was the tipping point that gave you that courage to come out and just be like, you know what? I'm done leading a life like this. I want to be, like you said, I don't want to be treated like a second-class citizen. I
right.
want to be treated with the respect I deserve.
Right. Well, again, I had a baseball. My baseball life was the only closeted part, but there was a couple things that happened with that. Starting in late 90s, 98, 99, there were a couple guys individually, just randomly, a couple umpires that, in spring training, for example, Darryl Cousins, were having a beer and just kind of sitting there talking about whatever. And he said, by the way, Scotty, he said, I know you kind of lead a different lifestyle. I just want you to know that I don't care. I will walk on the field with you at any time. You're a good umpire. You're a good guy. And I just want you to know I don't care. Well, of course, my reaction, because it's always the reaction I had at that time, the defense shields went up, and so I didn't say, well, all I said was, oh, thanks, Darryl, I appreciate that. And that was it. I didn't admit to anything or anything. I just think, and then, made it go away. But internally I was saying, man, I guess all these years, maybe I wasn't as good an actor as I thought I was. Maybe they got figured it out. But so that kind of started breaking up to where by the early 2000s, I was out to the staff that I worked with, the umpires. I was out to Major League Baseball, the people that sign my checks, the people that I work for. But when I came out in 2014, it was, the teams didn't know, the media didn't know, the fans didn't know. That was news to them. The reason I came out, Mike and I legally got married the year before in 2013. And in September of 2014, Referee Magazine did a big story about my career. And they did a great job. Peter Jackal is the writer, did just an outstanding job. And he interviewed people from when I went to high school with, my first umpire commissioner back in 75 when I was 15. I worked radio for 5.5 years. They talked to my old program director. So, he thoroughly researched this story. One person that was not even mentioned is Mike, right? And Mike has been with me since October of 86. So when the story was over and they asked for some pictures to add to it, I told Mike, I said, I want to send this picture. It was of him and I going to Australia earlier that year when MLB opened there with the Diamondbacks and the Dodgers. And I said, I want to send this picture with the caption Dale Scott and longtime companion Michael Roush, going to Australia or whatever. I said, but that, I want to make sure you're okay with it. And he kind of laughed. He said, I'm okay with it. You're the one who's got to deal with it. So I sent that with some other pictures and thoroughly thinking that, I've opened that box now. It's going to come flying out and it's all out there. Well, Referee Magazine is about 39,000 subscribers. It's a closed magazine. In other words, you can't get on the newsstand. So it was crickets. There was nothing. But there was one guy who was gay that was a D1 football official that saw the article, saw the picture. He got a hold of outsports.com. They contacted me and they wanted to do an interview. And I said, I would do that after the World Series. So we did that. And that's when it came out, December 2nd. They dropped that on the internet and it blew up. And for about a day and a half, I had, it was just a whirlwind of interviews and wanting interviews and getting invited to Survivor and Amazing Race.
Oh, wow.
and just wild stuff. And then it was over, basically, because it was about a 2-day story for the most part. But the reason I did it is because we were now legally married. There were a lot of people that worked very hard to advance gay rights in this country, including marriage equality. And I just felt hypocritical to be in the, on the stage that I'm on, in the situation that I'm in, and with a partner at that time, it was like 27 years or whatever. But I said, you know what? Yes, I want to, I got to the point there, guys, where if somebody has a problem with me being gay, it's really not my problem. It's their problem. I mean, and so I kind of just thought, baseball, no, I mean, the people that I work for know, obviously it's not a problem. That I was a crew chief. I was working postseason. That, there's no change in assignments or anything because of who I was. So and now we were legally married. I thought, this is ridiculous. So that's why I did it. And that's how it all came about.
All right. Dale, I want to thank you for your time tonight. We've held you for damn near 40 minutes. I'm sure you got other things you'd rather be doing than talking to a couple of guys in Midland, Michigan. But Dale
No,
Scott,
I enjoyed it, guys. I thank you for the invite.
Yeah. So the book is available right now then on Amazon.
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, other outlets. I'm not sure. I don't think it's in stores yet because I don't know if they can do that till May 1st. I really don't know, but I do know you can online. You can buy the book, and it'll be sent right out to you. I will be posting my promotional schedule and that kind of stuff in the coming weeks on Facebook and also on my website, which isn't live yet, but it will be. Right. And I just hope people enjoy it. I enjoyed writing it. I learned a lot, and I just hope people enjoy it.
Awesome. Thank you very much for